It's like Groundhog Day gone horribly wrong, right? Please give it up, the cast and the crew. They're going to come on up. I'd like to welcome Jason Cook from General Hospital and Days of Our Lives. Come on up, Jason, and I'm going to have you introduce your wonderful cast. He's the writer, director, producer of 4 for Fun. Come around the wings, unless you're young, you could jump up here. Give it up, Jason Cook, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Hi. So we did that to you guys just now. Thank you very much, Sedona Film Festival, Patrick Weiss, for having us. It's a huge honor to be here. It's a huge honor to share the film with you. This is definitely a passion project. And it was only made possible because I had an amazing team around me, starting with my wife, Terry Song, back there. Thank you, honey, for everything. And my father, who helped out with this. Thanks, Dad, for being involved. My sister's here, too. Hi, Shell. This actually started during pandemic, of course, when everything in production got shut down, and it was like, how are we going to get back to work? And I had a couple things that fell through, and I was just like, I just need to just do something with the people I know that I can count on. And that started with a native Arizonian, Dave Bergen, who is the editor of this film, who I've worked with for, how long, Dave? 12 years, something like that? I don't know. Too long, probably, is what he would say. And I said, hey, you want to just do something? It's either an editor's dream or worst nightmare, because there's a lot to cut in this thing. And he said, let's do it. And I said, okay, I just got to write something, I guess. So I did, and I did a Zoom read like everyone was doing during pandemic. And I have worked with the cast and actor before, and I had worked with a few of these actors before. And Donovan Patton, who was a wonderful Soren in this movie. Donovan, why don't you come on down here? We had worked together a couple times, and he just came in and embraced it. Did he leave? Oh, there he is. Oh. So Donovan was on the very first Zoom read of this thing. I was like, yep, this guy's awesome, and he is totally Soren. I'd buy this guy as a psych professor. And after that first Zoom read, we had 2 other people that came in, and both of the ladies of this film. And Annika Foster was somebody who I had not met before this movie, but my cast, she was in like 6 movies last year. She's shooting to the stars. We were lucky to have her. So Annika Foster, please come down to the stage.
Yeah.
And she had the hardest stuff because she had all the math stuff. I mean, that's not true. They all had hard stuff. That's actually...
No, math is hard. You're right.
But Annika came... I'm going to talk about how hard this was in a second, but she came with the 3-ring binder and had all of the different sections separated out and organized, and she also kept me on track because I was also losing my head doing this thing. So also on that second Zoom was Brytni Sarpy, who I had seen her work before. She had also been on General Hospital, and she was most recently on Young and the Restless. Brytni, come on down. And Brytni was... Everybody was so good on this thing. I couldn't even believe it. You can't even have a Zoom at work and have people talk to each other, let alone have actors develop chemistry on Zoom. But Brytni had so much chemistry with everyone and brought such a light to it that I had to add that scene where she gets stabbed at the end, just because I knew she could pull it off so well. And then finally, actually, before I finish, the other co-star that she has that was like completely fortuitous in post-production was our composer, Gavin Templeton, who, it's an incredible thing for a filmmaker to work with a composer because I really feel like directing is composing. And so you get to the end of the movie, and then you're looking to a fellow composer to say back to you what you were trying to say in the first place. So Gavin Templeton made sense out of this whole thing, and Gavin's back there. Thank you, Gavin. And so he wrote themes for all of these characters. And when it came time to figure out George, who it was amazing because he came into full focus on our third Zoom read when somehow Jacob Young was available, because this man I've known since, I think, 99. He was on General Hospital when I was on days, and he works a lot more than me, that's for sure. And he had a break in his schedule and was like, Jacob, can you jump on this thing? He's like, hell yeah, I can beat George. And he was our drum beat in this thing and talked shit to everybody in the movie. It was awesome. So Jacob Young, come on down.
I'm glad, for the record, I'm really glad you didn't let him come down first. Just saying.
So, it's such a pleasure to share this movie with all of you, because this would not have been possible without these actors who, I started in this business as an actor, and I, moved behind the scenes because I wanted to create stuff that I just felt wasn't opportunities that weren't being given to actors. And these four were up against it because I did not make it easy on them, as you could see. And miraculously, this is true, we shot this movie in 11 days. And those were half days because we could only shoot at night, because the movie takes place at night. So that's, if you're doing the math, that's only 5.5 days. So we made this movie very quickly. And it's only because everyone came ready to rock. So if you just give it up for this cast, they were amazing. And I think I'm turning it back over to Mark or Patrick.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'm gonna fire the first couple of questions.
Great.
Raise your hand if you have something you would like to ask, and I'll come back to you. Talk to us about where the concept came from, and was there any significance? Of course, you shot it in 11 days. There's 11 different endings. What was that decision based on?
Well, the days was based off of money, so that's just completely coincidental. No, the concept was about being present. That's really what it was, because everyone had their own pandemic, and it was hard in innumerable amounts of ways that we don't need to get into. But there was also something beautiful about slowing down during it with family and friends, and it put more focus for me on, oh my gosh, just being in this moment right now. You can turn this thing around in spite of all these terrible things that are happening. And so I wanted to make a movie about being present, and weirdly came up with this concept of constructing it in a different way. And that's also just based off of wanting to make a really interesting movie. It's a little bit unconventional, but at the same time, the focus is the same. So that was sort of the two places it started from.
Super interesting. Like one of the most interesting films I've ever seen. So similar to Patrick's question, so the 11 different scenarios, the swingers thing, how did that come out of your head? Come on, give it up. Is that real life? Is that fantasy?
No, it's fantasy. But here's the thing: anybody in this room can say you have fantasized about how differently an evening could have gone had you brought a gun to dinner and shot the person you don't like. So there's a lot of fantasy in the movie, and then there's just also a lot of confrontation with beliefs, and all four of the actors were embodying characters that believed drastically different things. And so it was just about creating conflict and seeing how many different ways something can shake out, and just having fun with that, but exploring that for a point, and that was your best life is one that's lived in the present.
So I was just wondering, because I'm a lit major with a love for math, but I'm wondering, do you have a math background at all? Because it's fascinating, like string theory and all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Quantum mechanics.
I do like math. I don't have a math background. I'm a college dropout. I have a father that really loves math. He's an engineer, and I don't know. It's based a lot on music, actually. So like the way that the film's constructed, and we actually had them all labeled when we were Show Everybody Crazy, right? This row, you guys crazy? Every section we had labeled like A, B, C, D, and then approximately the time that they were going to run, because the film's made where it's the first scenario where Soren gets run over is 1 minute long, and then the second one is 2 minutes, and 4 minutes, 8 minutes, 16, 32, and then we step it down. And that's a really old musical thing from 400 years ago. And the reason it came up then, 400 years ago, was really to construct the way we feel about life, where you kind of like live into something and then it like disappears quickly just as you're kind of getting the hold of it. And so the film is sort of modeled off of that. So as much as math, it's also music.
I'd like to, and I'll come to you next, but I want to get the reaction from all. This was your first time seeing the film, the rest of you. Yeah. Can you tell me what your reaction was to it tonight? And did any of you have a favorite scenario, a favorite ending of these? I know I did not prep you with these questions, so you got to think about this on the fly a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
I can start. Does this work? Yeah.
Come on, go first.
I just, as Emmy living in it, it was never funny. Ever. So it was so enjoyable to sit there and laugh. I didn't even know I was in a comedy. So that was the best surprise ever. It was so funny to me. It's just so absurd. And I think my favorite is when I'm so determined to get it right, and it's quick, and I'm gonna get it right, and then I stab Des. That was my favorite one.
Yeah. Whose favorite was the one where I die? I just want to know. Oh yeah, second favorite. I was going to say, no hands went up. Thank you for that. I needed that personally. No, I think it's selfishly, yeah. I think I agree with you. It's when you live a part of it, you want to see things going right, and I think we all get brought along as an audience, and we all kind of want to see it going right, and so I tend to enjoy it when there's that cold splash of knife. But that also makes it kind of my least favorite. So I would say I didn't anticipate the imminent destruction of the whole world playing as well as it did, actually. So I think in some ways, like I really felt the way that one landed. So that's like a new favorite. I was anticipating your death, but you got trumped by a meteor.
And that's okay. I think for me, the most enjoyable part, well, the reason I even wanted to do this project was the writing. I think it's so nuanced and it's so cerebral, and I consider myself a fairly cerebral person, so just diving into the connections from story to story and even just unlocking and breaking down just kind of his themes and main points was just so nice to see unfold and to see us capable of delivering. The writing is incredible. Like it's so layered. Like if you have a chance to watch this again and actually just really watch and listen, there's so many things that will fly over your head. Even being in it, like to go back and watch was just a beautiful thing. My favorite part was me dying too. I think because I knew for the audience it was really going to come, it was going to be a good turn, and that this was actually my first on-screen death. So, thanks for that.
Nicely done.
Yeah, that's it.
I have to agree. The writing was superb, and I kept joking, but I was really serious. That I said, I don't understand anything that's going on. Can we reread this again? What do you mean? Where is this coming from? What? But eventually it sunk into my and then I realized, oh, I'm perfect for George. This is great. But I have to say that all the endings were so great. Everybody had a chance to really spread their artistic wings and really have their moment, and moment to die, moment to live, moment to thrive. And I think I can't choose because of that. It was just really wonderful to watch all the endings unfold.
You must vote.
Yeah.
We need an answer.
Isn't it wild? Nobody said the revenge sex scene was the one, and which was, by the way, wasn't that wonderful, having the oxymoron, the two opposing things of them, the two that had sex, calmly talking. But Donovan, you've now traumatized my daughter.
Oh, I did.
My daughter Christina grew up as you have the host of Blue's Clues on Nickelodeon, and now she watched you have sex with her. I'm gonna send you a bill for therapy.
I mean,
thanks, Donovan.
I think he found the clue.
I really think you should blame Jason on this one.
Good one.
I really, yeah.
A wonderful job. And first question is, how many sequences were there? I was trying to count, but I couldn't.
11.
11, okay. And, okay, of course, you did it in 11 days, 5.5. What was the budget, if you don't mind? Or is everybody working?
We're not supposed to say.
Okay, so.
Sorry. It was lower than you think.
They always are. And the last thing I'd like to know is, did you know about Don't Look Up when you wrote that particular segment?
I did not, no.
Oh, very nice.
No.
Very serendipitous.
Just an awesome film. You seen it? Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope my voice doesn't crack. I've been breathing in carbon dioxide all day because of the mask. Anyway, I'm one of the screeners for the film festival this year. I really enjoyed your film from the first time. I had to watch it a second time, almost immediately after the first time. I do enjoy stories that have to do with time and playing with time, and how any choice we make, whether it's a big decision or a small choice, like getting out of your car on a busy street, there are destinies that follow those choices. And when one of you talked about being present, I think that's the takeaway from this. I know after seeing this film, I found myself being more present in just about everything I would do, whether it's deciding, well, which restaurant we're going to go to tonight. There's going to be a different story that plays out with even a decision like that. So thank you. This was most creative, and I loved it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask the question that nobody's asked yet. What about the red hanky-pankies?
What about them?
Well, whose were they? Well, I thought maybe, in the last scene, I thought maybe you were there, and they were hers, and you were putting it back.
So, in that take, if I'm correct, that is when I finally found a place where they'd be hidden and taken care of without being caught. So it's the time I get away with it. But then as you see, when I leave, it's not satisfying to get away with it. The guilt is still there. I might hide the panties, but the guilt lasts.
This is why she was an amazing Emmy.
Hi. I think my favorite scene was the end of the world one because it was so surprising. I liked all the different types of scenarios that you came up with, and the panties at the end, it looked like there was a matching pair in there that was hers, so I thought, that was interesting too. My question is that there are two scenarios that I thought of that you guys didn't do, and I'm wondering if you did that intentionally, which is that she actually tells him the truth, and then that they actually end up swinging, so mixing the couples, and neither of those, which seemed like the obvious choice, so I was like, is that why you left him out?
Sorry, I missed it. Can you just repeat it? Sorry.
The two scenarios that got left out, one that she tells him the truth, and ahead of time, before everything else comes out and sees what happens. And then the other one is that the four end up swinging, and it's like a positive experience.
I see. Well, those are two really great ones, and I love that you're actually coming up with them on your own. You should shoot the sequel. In truth, though, that's an awesome question, and for me to hear that, I'm actually just enthused that you're asking those questions, because as storytellers, which all five of us are, we're looking to inspire something for you. And the fact that you're asking those questions is a win for us. We couldn't do all of them, because in the multiverse, it would be a long movie. And there's probably there are a lot of other scenarios that could have happened too, but primarily we just wanted to focus on a character who's trying to alleviate herself of guilt and point to some of the problems that caused that. And in the end, all's well that ends well, and the happy ending bias leads us to not making that mistake in the first place. So. But that's awesome. I'm glad you're thinking of them, and there's probably a bunch more we can come up with. It's great.
And can I chime in? I think the closest that we got to her telling him was her even revealing that he hit on her, and that is the one where we lost him. So I think that kind of edged towards that scenario.
Yeah.
Got to the face.
It's a very short scenario.
In our echoing life, the limitations are mine. Like, in terms of like what I can or cannot accept. So that's probably my fault then. Or Soren's fault. What is art?
What is art?
I just want to commend you all. The acting was absolutely wonderful. And if you did that,
Jason, Jacob, take us back. You two, I think, have known each other the longest. When did you begin? I think you said 1999. Jason, something like that?
I'm guessing. I mean, it's about then, right?
Yeah, no, we were both swinging, and I mean, like swinging from soap to soap at that time. It was. I started in '97.
I started in '99.
'99, and then it was like wasn't long after I wasn't supposed to be at nightclubs, and all of a sudden I was like, "Hey, you're that guy from Days of Our Lives," and you.
And that's how we talk to each other.
It had that.
Hey, you're the guy from General Hospital.
Because.
Yeah.
But yeah,
two douchebags out on the town.
I would run into him all over the place, and we immediately kind of hit it off, and we after the finish of this film, Jason sent me a picture, and he goes, "Is this you?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, that's me. That was at the Playboy Mansion. You took that photo." And that was many, many moons ago. And so, but anyway.
And he said, "Look at the framing. Isn't the framing excellent in this picture? Look at the framing of that."
But that tells you right there, this was before cell phone cameras, right? He was jockeying a camera around all over the place. At the Playboy Mansion. How you smuggled that in, I don't know.
I'm so glad we're talking about this right now.
Well, I want to be completely. But we go a long ways back. And Jason, we talked about this, doing a project together at some point several years back, and I'm just so glad to reconnect with Jason after all these years.
And I'm grateful it happened this quickly. Like when we were having drinks, we were in Salt Lake City, where Jacob was living at the time. I was out there because that's where my sister's from, and we were just kind of, just talking about, let's figure something out. It's always hard. Truthfully, he works a lot, and I just never thought we'd be able to pull it together as quickly as we did, and thank God, it was awesome.
So I have a question for the actors. So you guys all seem like you came from roles where you were a character, you knew your character, you're behind the scenes, you probably had something to say about your character when you're going through scripts and all. So now you're in this 11-day situation where you almost don't know what's happening all the time, right? So what were your comments to your writer-director as you were working through this? Because you're coming from a totally different norm. Were you allowed to say something like, this doesn't work, or not feel uncomfortable? I'm just curious of the behind-the-scenes dynamics.
Jason was an amazing director, I think, because once we were cast, he gave the reins over to us. And it was like, you know Emmy as well as I know Emmy, so let's talk. You know, it was a very collaborative environment for all of us. And so there was a lot of room for play and for figuring out what the minute difference was between the 11 scenarios. And that was fun to kind of find together.
And we also had the beautiful opportunity to rehearse. We hopped on Zooms and actually talked out some of the harder scenes and things that didn't, like me, I'm a sucker for changing my lines. So there were little words here and there that I would make sound more natural for me to say, and things like that. So it was very collaborative, and just even having the time to not do it on the day, but to actually work before we worked was really nice. That's what benefited me the most, at least.
I have a question here for Jason. Oh, sorry. Do you want to? So Jason, quick question for you in regards to writing and directing. So I know a lot of writers that become directors just to protect their project because of the vision of that. Talk a little bit about that for you, the muscle that you use for each of those. And when you were writing this, did you actually see it? Did you see coverage? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, coverage, I knew there'd be a lot of coverage because we had to shoot the heck out of this thing. We actually shot this with 3 cameras, and that's no different than where I said I dropped out of college because I was working on a show, so I had on-the-job training on days where we always shot 3 cameras or 4 cameras, and Jacob and Brytni both had that background. So I knew that we would have the coverage, but in terms of why I got into it and got behind the scenes, it was actually to the last question, to empower the actors, because when I was working on those shows, I'm grateful for those opportunities. I learned everything I know from so many amazing crew people that worked. You don't work harder than the folks that work on soap operas, and I learned how to wrap cables on days. But what was happening to the actors was I just saw so many missed opportunities. People who were so talented but didn't have the opportunity to show it. And so writing this, it's deliberately challenging to all the actors. Think of them all like musicians that have to play Rachmaninoff or something. It's hard stuff, but I wanted to do that because when you are blessed with working with people who are this talented, to just let them run with it and trust them. I was trying to give them what I wish I always had. And then that comes back to the coverage thing of just making sure you get it all. Like letting them run amok and letting them clash and capturing the fireworks, because actors can be there's some special effects in this movie, but actors are the greatest special effect. That's what we all go to the movies for, is to watch people and watch people learn and evolve. And it takes very talented actors to be able to fill that out and to make that happen. And so I wrote it, and I was grateful that they were wanting to do it, and then at that point it was their problem.
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, this is probably the most fun I've ever had on a project, and it was because of Jason's vision and his trust in all of us.
So whether it's on a draft of the script or on the cutting room floor, is there another wild death scene or story you could share with us? Like, does George choke on the salt-domed fish in another version of this?
In this lady's sequel, right? Maybe you can collaborate, the two of you, and yeah, you guys just have at it. There's a lot. You can talk to the editor over there, Dave Bergen. He'll tell you. There was a lot, but in terms of like the actual construction of like different eventualities, no, these were always the 11. Everyone was going to die once. We were going to have sex in the middle of the movie. It's just like a breather.
And everyone dies together.
Yeah, and everyone dies together with the asteroid.
Can you tell us about, Jacob, you and I were talking, and Mark, earlier today in the media lounge.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about the beautiful home you had to shoot in and your locations. Are you able to share with this audience that story behind that?
Yeah, no, when the project presented itself to me, you guys were already well endowed into it, and Jason, I had read it, and I was like, wow, this is really over my head. and I'm going to be brutally honest. But he said, well, we got to find a location. We have to find a beautiful Bel Air mansion or a Beverly Hills. It takes place there. And if we don't find it in the next 2 weeks, I don't think we can do the project. And I said, let me get to work on this. And I literally was on the phone for 48 hours straight, just calling everybody I knew who had a big house in LA. And I called.
He used that voice that he used to use, right?
Yeah, I used the voice. I called every single person, and
He started every phone call with, hey, you got a big house, right?
Well, it was kind of that situation, and most of the time they were like, well, we're divorced now, and my wife has that house, and I don't think that's going to be okay. And it was click, 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 and finally, I don't know, I must have been sleepwalking, and suddenly this woman came to my mind, Shelley Curtis, who has directed pretty much every soap opera that I've known, that I've ever been on. She's an amazing woman, and her husband invented the heart stent. And they have multiple homes.
His name is Jonathan Stent.
His name is not Jonathan Stent.
That's why it's called The Stent. I read that.
But she also directed the soap scenes in Nurse Betty with Renee Zellweger, which was such a cool film. And so I called Shelley and I said, Shelley. And it was that voice that time. And I said, we need a house. We need a house. And she's like, for you, Jacob, anything. It sounds like you need the Bel Air mansion, which is that big French chateau-looking exterior. And but then I said, Jason, this is in your hands. You got to, because I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, and I said, Jason, you're gonna have to go visit. And the next thing you know, they hit it off, and they became great friends. She's like, you got to see the Beverly Hills house. And so then I called Jason. I said, Jason, how did it all go? He goes, it went great. We're gonna Frankenstein all these houses together and make it all one house. And so. The kitchen was in the Beverly Hills Flats house, the French chateau, the exterior, and the foyer was done in the Bel Air. And then, of course, your father's house was the backyard scene. So it was not all just one house, but we were able to put it together.
Yeah, it was amazingly fortuitous. I was really worried about it because we didn't have a budget. So getting a house like that, like that. It's like, that was more, we couldn't have done it. And luckily, Shelley loved Jacob, and I think it was actually the soap connection again, where I explained to her how we were going to shoot it, and she's like, oh, you got it. You can do, do you really even need 2 days? You could probably just do it in one. It's like, no, we need a couple days at each location. And then, as nice as her homes are, it's still in Los Angeles, and I grew up outside of Los Angeles, so I hit my dad up because I grew up with this amazing backyard that I didn't really appreciate until I moved away, and just, it was always going to be in that backyard for sure, because we just had the huge gully thing to shoot out on, and we could have we were at that table in this movie quite a bit. It needed to be beautiful, so, yeah.
I'm actually setting up this next question because, Jacob, I want to give you a shout out for your podcast that reaches a lot of people. You had me on your guest as a podcast. These two wonderful people that are up here in the balcony that she's about to ask the question, they're visiting physicians that are here for doing some work for FEMA. She heard our podcast, had not known there was a festival, looked us up, and came specifically because of our podcast and this film.
Thank you.
Thank you. And they got so excited they bought a 10-film ticket package, so I'm going to let her take it from here. I just want to let you know how important this stuff is.
Wonderful.
You guys were amazing. It was like we are living in New York in Sedona. We are from New York. And this was like we were in a Broadway show over there. So anyway, you all are cool and we enjoyed this evening after giving all those IV infusions the whole day. I want to know a little about each of your backgrounds. You are amazing. I really need to know each of you.
Me start?
Yep, you're on the end.
My background. As far as just like, as far as acting, arts, that, I graduated high school and I was getting ready. I got accepted to UCLA, and I had no ambitions really to be an actor. But I grew up playing the harmonica, and I did things, and I was in school plays and musicals, and I just decided that I was going to try my hand at some commercials and make a little extra scratch to pay for my college. And that suddenly, within a month, presented a national Pepsi commercial, a Nickelodeon show, and The Bold and the Beautiful, a contract. And so suddenly I was like, whoa, I think I've got something that's happening here. And so then I started taking it much more serious. I started studying. I studied at the Beverly Hills Playhouse for a long time under Milton Katselas, who's been gone for many, many years, but the Beverly Hills Playhouse is still there. And I've studied all over the place, and I just really, I fell in love with performing. And I love every aspect about it. I love being lost in the imagination of somebody else's words, living another life that is not mine, because it's way more interesting. But there's just something really wonderful about being able to experience human emotion on such a level that doesn't exist in my own personal life. So that's pretty much all I've got to say about that.
It's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Jacob Young.
I know. George.
My background, I came about this, the theater route. I am a huge theater nerd. I started in high school, and I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Acting at UC Santa Barbara. And then I moved my way to LA and decided to do film and television, and that's kind of where I've been. General Hospital was my big start, and there's been some movies in between that, and I am currently on Young and the Restless. And why do I like it? I love doing this because I was actually a very shy kid. I was really shy, but acting was my way of getting it out, whatever it was. And I also like connecting with people on a heart level. I like being able to emote and also being able to bring those emotions out of other people that can experience similar things, because I think my mission statement is a big thing about oneness, and we are all one and the same in a big way, and I think that is the most important thing to pay attention to in life. So I'm able to do that with my art.
I found acting also through theater. I grew up a military brat, and without anybody in my family really in the arts. And my brother took a drama class, and he told me about it. And I was like, oh, wait, there's also girls there, so I'm going to take this class. And it was in 8th grade, and I ended up doing the play, and I knew right then. Sometimes that's a gift in life, to know exactly when something works, like spiritually or whatever. It all clicked. It was in Vegas, so like all 3 tumblers like went. It was theater. Right in that moment, it was kind of incredible. And so I ended up going into the arts, and my brother then went into the military, which is kind of odd. But yeah, and I don't know. Did anybody graduate from college here? Did you graduate? Okay, good. I was going to say, it was like the guys all dropped out, right? Or did you graduate college too?
No, I was supposed to go to college.
Yeah.
Were you also Lumiere?
Yeah.
Money, which is not a normal scenario, right? Like, it's all luck, timing. Skill, yes.
Sure.
Those all factor into the equation. But there's so many kids that come to me and young people in the industry that say, how can I do this? And honestly, it's, you got to give kudos to the people that move to Hollywood from the Midwest and say, I'm going to become an actor, I'm going to become a director. The chances of you really making it are slim to none. Not to say to discourage anybody, it's just not something that happens on an everyday occasion. And for me, it was I was incredibly green, 17 years old, and getting a contract role on CBS TV. It's just, it's unheard of. But, these things, I guess, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's not something that's commonplace.
No.
And I try not to discourage. I like to teach, and I do workshops on the side with kids all the time. And I give them the support that they need. But you also have to be brutally honest. It's a tough industry to break into, and more so these days.
Yeah. Well, some people hear those odds and they're like, I like those odds, right? Everybody's like crazy. And those people are insane. And they're exactly the people that we need to be
all of us
around us. Yeah, no, I mean, but nothing, you're absolutely right, Jacob. Like, nothing happens alone. Like, if you make a film, I assume everybody here is interested in film, and has experience with it. None of it happens by yourself, unless you're Bo Burnham. But and then as actors, so it's like on some level, our job is, like, if in the basest form, to reflect light, right? And there's tons of other people doing that, like working and making that happen. So we're like one section of a machine that works. And I really like that because I tend to get my energy off of other people. And I find, when you can surround yourself with other creative people and you get everybody working in one direction at one time, oneness is right. It's amazing. It is in itself a purpose for living. So.
Wow, I feel like we're doing a really good TED Talk. My background, I grew up on an island in Washington, and similar, my mom put me in theater when I was 10, and just like a community theater, and I think I came home from the first rehearsal and was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And I was fortunate enough to have parents that were like, go, do it. And supported me every step of the way. And I went to USC for theater training and studied in London for a little bit. I just was learning like a sponge. And yeah, and now I'm just doing the thing. And I love it more than anything.
Oh, yeah, great. So, luck has a lot to do with it, for sure. Jacob is not wrong about that. He's definitely telling you straight. But there's also, no one tells you about the work that you have to put in. And you have to put that work in when you're constantly getting rejected. So it's extra hard when you're being told no all the time. So to constantly push forward, like all four of these amazingly talented actors have, it's because they do have the capability of reflecting the light, and that's why they are the right people, especially for this movie. And you can see that in all of their talents, not when they're reciting the lines that I wrote, but when they're listening to each other. And they are reflecting that, and they do come together as oneness. And that is an innate talent that all four of these people have, that they were sharing with you in the movie, shared it with me on set. And you not only have to be that good, but you also have to be working all the time for that one chance to break through. And so my dad would love nothing more than me to quote him up here: when opportunity meets preparedness is when you get your break. And all four of these people, they have that. And so I don't want to discount the amount of work that you have to put in as an actor, because, I'll come back to the musician analogy. You have to have your craft down so well, because the margin for error when you're going to get that break is so narrow. You have to be able to nail it. And I think because of how hard I found the business as an actor was also my attraction to it. Because I when I was a kid, I was always writing stories, and before I could even write words, I was always writing stories, and I loved finding a way to tell stories and tell stories differently. And so when I was on the shows, I think I was always kind of taking notes and just slowly moving away from it. So I got to learn in front of the lights, and then kind of see the stage to real athletes. I mean, that's what they are. It's like they just when you are that in shape and that well conditioned, and then given that moment to shine, you get four for fun, and that's, I think that's what drove us all together is this common bond of wanting to tell stories, reflect light, and be one with the world on an island in Washington. Did I get all of that together? Yes. Anyways.
And it's so perfect for Sedona, the whole oneness thing. So well done. We've got time for one more question, and then I know you're going to be greeting people out in the lobby. So we've got the final question right here.
Hi. I really appreciated your acting and everything. And I'm just amazed how good you look right now after that fight and having in the front end of a car and having a knife stuck in you. But it's just amazing. But I had one burning question throughout all of this. I appreciated all the deep philosophy, the physics, the music, and everything. But my burning question was, whose house was the laundry basket in?
The important question. That is a laundry room at the top of the hill in Bel Air. So that was the most expensive laundry room ever shot in a movie, ever. And it was so small that I couldn't get the damn angles I wanted.
Well, I would like to thank you all so much for coming and joining us here in Sedona. And I want to let you know something too. This is very powerful for the film. Mark Rosano, as I said, has become a dear friend of our festival, and he sent me the film and the screener from you, Jason. And immediately I knew I couldn't watch this because I'm too biased, because I'd want to bring it in just because of our friendship. So I refused to watch the film. And as Patrice said, our entire screening committee watched it first. And I got to tell you, you got in on your own merit. Every single screener, I watched it last, and every single screener rated it high, we have to show this. So I commend you on what you put together here in this incredible cast, and congratulate you and wish you well on this film's journey. Please help me thank them.
Thank you, Sedona.
Thank you.
Jacob,
Thank you, guys.
Brytni, Donovan, Annika, and Jason. And they'll see you out. We're going to whisk them to the red carpet because they have a quick interview to do, but as soon as they're done with that, you can get your pictures or whatever you want and say hello.
Thank you so much for being here.